Hello and welcome to this fireside chat that I have been looking forward to for a long time, ever since we had the chance to do our prep session together, Lucille. So I'm delighted to be welcoming and introducing you all to Lucille Ossai, who is an award-winning communications expert and the best-selling author of Influence and Thrive. A few fun facts before we get in. Lucille, you're a fan of detective series.
I am indeed. I am.
Childhood? Have you always been a fan of detective series?
I've always been intrigued with just finding out who did what. And many years ago, I just really got into it. I fancied myself a bit of an expert, you know, like, oh no, this is going to happen and all that. So brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. A bit gory in some situations, but yeah, I find it fascinating.
Oh, well, brilliant. Lovely. Thank you so much. Listen, we are here not to talk about detective stories today, but to talk about communication. And let's dive into our conversation, Lucille. We have a series of questions that we are going to address. So let's go with the first question. So what is the biggest myth of communication and how can professionals overcome it?
Yeah, this is a fantastic question. And it's a really good way to start, because the biggest myth in communication is that it is reserved for a selected few and that you have to have the innate skills to be a skilled communicator. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is simply not true. Yeah, superb communication skills can be learned by, you know, self-education, by practice, by training, and most of all, by discipline. So if you are committed to the journey, you will improve your communication skills. And that is regardless of your circumstances or your experience. So it is achievable and it is doable. So that's the biggest myth I would like to really debunk at the very beginning. Anyone, anywhere, limited by whatever circumstances or situations, can become a skilled communicator.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lucille. Well, let's get on. Yeah. We'll go to the next question. So what should, and this is a really interesting question now, because we've been talking about mindfulness quite a lot.
Yes.
What should we be mindful of when working or doing business with international professionals remotely? And of course, this is our reality very
Yes.
much more so over the last 4 years.
Yes. Well, the pandemic changed everything. Yeah. And now we need to work with people remotely and collaborate across regions. I'm logging in from Lagos in Nigeria, in Africa, for example, and this is just the reality that we see ourselves in. And I think it's really important to note 3 factors that will make you effective in collaborating across different regions and across different fields and working with foreigners from different walks of life. The first one is to be observant, should I say, to be aware of something called cultural sensitivity. Yeah. And I would like to relate that to nonverbal communication, because when you're working remotely, you're going to be doing a lot of Zoom calls, you're going to be doing webinars, attending virtual summits, and so on and so forth. And I think it's really important to be aware that your nonverbal cues will be interpreted in a different way across different regions. So it's important not just to assume that sustained eye contact is a sign that you're connecting. What if you're connecting with somebody who comes from a culture where it is disrespectful, so to speak, to maintain strong eye contact? So you need to be aware of the different perceptions that different nonverbal language cues could mean. However, the smile, the genuine smile, is universal. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter where you come from. When you smile genuinely from the heart and on all that, it is interpreted the same way across cultures. So I think the smile is a safe way to begin. So that's the first thing I would like to say. And the second thing I would like to say is just be kind. Just be kind, especially if you are connecting with somebody whose first language is not English. And I have a really interesting anecdote to share. Many, many years ago, when I was a student, I studied French at the University of Leicester in the UK. As part of my degree requirement, I was required to spend a year in France, to hone my French speaking skills and all that. So I chose a lady to stay with, an Italian lady who spoke no word of English, or who was fluent in French, and that worked well for me. And what I realized is that the locals were very, very supportive and very accommodating of the foreigners and so on and so forth. However, there was one negative experience that I can still remember 24 years after the fact. Just based on how I felt in that situation. And what had happened was that I was required to have my documents translated into French, to apply for the residence permit. So I had located a very good translation service, and I went to the lady and I tried, in halting French to explain exactly what I wanted. And then the lady, cold as ice, looked at me and said, "Vous parlez mal le français. You speak French poorly." And that just deflated me. I just felt I was disoriented. I wasn't happy. I felt deflated. I managed to get through that encounter, but that experience stayed with me. Now, I don't remember how she looked like. If I passed on the street today, I would never remember how she looked like, but I would never forget how she made me feel. And this was in 1999. So what I would like everyone to do, just be kind. Realize that if you're connecting with people whose first language is not English, just appreciate that extra difficulty they may experience, just trying to decipher what you're saying, and speak loudly, speak slowly. If you see from their body language that they're trying to grasp what you're saying, help them along, repeat what you've said, speak slower, ask more questions. They would feel that you care about them and you are going to build a stronger connection. But don't be like how that lady was to me many, many years ago. And that is the quickest way to just lose all sorts of connections and to lose your sense of humanity. So be kind. Be kind. Speak slowly, speak loudly, and just be kind. So that's point number 2. And then point number 3 would be to just adhere to the 3 rules of effective speaking. Now, these are rules we probably do anyway, but I many years ago while I was blogging, I just thought it was a good idea to just put it all in the nice framework. And I explained it in detail in my book, but here they are, very simple rule. The first rule is to consider your audience. So consider who it is that you're going to be speaking with. Is English the first language, for example? Is it a director, or is it a new entrant? Is it a new graduate? Just ask a few questions and just consider how they would like to be addressed. That's the very first thing, because the audience will determine the language that you will use, the vocabulary, and then the content, what will be relevant to them. So that's really important. That's the first one. The second rule is to prioritize the 3 beacons. I call them beacons because they light the way your communication should go. So ensure that your messaging is simple to understand, so that a 12-year-old would understand it. And this doesn't matter how complex your topic is. Just make sure you strip away the big grammar, the big words, and simplify, simplify, simplify. I always say simple does not mean simplistic. Simple does not mean simplistic. Your audience will be grateful for you speaking in simple terms. So that's the first beacon. Second beacon is to keep it brief. Keep your messages brief. Get straight to the point. Know what your point is. And then get straight to the point as quickly as possible. Because when you're collaborating with people remotely, different things are competing for their time. You have social media, you have pets, you have children, you have so many things competing at the time. So please respect the time of the person you are speaking with and get to the point as quickly as possible. And then the third beacon is clarity. In addition to being simple, what do you want the other person you're connecting with to think, to know, or to do? It's one of the 3. What do you want them to think, to know, or to do? And ensure that you address that in your communication. So that's rule number 2. Ensure that your messaging is simple, brief, and clear. And then rule number 3 is really important: feedback. Ask for feedback and request feedback. And if you are in a high-powered role and you're dealing with crises and some upheavals, it's really important that you respond within 24 to 48 hours and no later than 48 hours. And even if you're not in a crisis type of situation, people appreciate feedback. It doesn't matter if the feedback is negative, but if you cultivate the habit of giving feedback and ensuring your feedback is timely and factual, they would appreciate it. You would increase the perception of your credibility and your trustworthiness, and then you'll be regarded as someone who is professional. And people like to work with other people who know what they're doing and who are professional in all their endeavors. So there you have them, 3 simple rules of effective speaking. The first one is your audience. Consider your audience so that you can craft your messaging accordingly. The second rule of the beacons: prioritize the 3 beacons. Ensure that your messaging is simple, brief, and clear. And the third rule of effective speaking is to ensure that you ask for feedback and you give feedback, and ensure when you're giving feedback that it is timely and factual. So you state what you do know and say, we don't have all the facts, but this is what we do know. A, B, C. And if you do that, you'll be considered somebody who is thorough and somebody who is trustworthy, which makes it easier for you to collaborate with people across different fields and regions. So just some quick tips there.
Brilliant. Amazing. Thank you so much, Lucille. Right. Let us go to the next question then. We've just got just over 10 minutes left. You've written an incredible communication resource, and it's called Influence and Thrive, tackling 4 key areas of communication: nonverbal, public speaking, business writing, and organizational communication. And as part of your process of book writing, you've interviewed professionals and leaders to share their advice. So what are the key takeaways from their insights? What's going to inspire our audience today?
Very quickly. I'll share 4 very quick ones. The first one came from a lady, Robin Farmayan. She is a US entrepreneur, public speaker, and so on and so forth. And she said, use simple language. She said also, if it cannot fit on the back of the napkin, then your messaging is too long. So simplicity and brevity. and and this is somebody who has spoken, I think, in 13 countries and done over 140 speaking engagements. So she knows what she's talking about. Then the second one came from a seasoned executive in the oil and gas industry, Eugene Okere. And he said, and his part of his work is to broker multi-million-dollar deals in the oil and gas industry for his employer. And what he said this. He said, the higher up the leadership ladder you go, the more you realize that your effectiveness is less about your technical skills, but more about managing people. Yeah. And he said it was really important to create a vision and to communicate that vision in very, very clear, simple terms so that you can inspire people to follow. And always use storytelling. Always include your stories, because that's what connects you to people, and they appreciate that. And then the third one came from a very interesting lady, Gina London. She's a Emmy Award-winning ex-CNN anchor and communication specialist. And she said, for organizations, that communication should never be a one and done affair. It should be continuous and it should be strategic. And she said, a very good soundbite, she said, you're always communicating by default or by design. So choose wisely. And the final one was from a barrister, UK barrister with over 20 years of experience, Kola Sonaike. And he said, really interestingly, he said, emotion triggers action. Yeah, and it's an incredible persuasive tool. Surprisingly, not logic, emotion. So he said, use emotion. Focus on building emotional building statements in your speeches, in your presentations, and you will be able to trigger action. So these are just 4 of the fantastic insights that I personally learned when I was interviewing all these experts as well.
It's amazing. And again, thank you for all your comments. We're going to hopefully have some time to address some of those comments after this. So last question. What is the most useful advice, Lucille, that you can give anyone who wants to contact influential people and who doesn't have the connections and referrals? And I guess we all know the process of trying to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn that you want to connect with. And an interesting question here. So what are your thoughts on this?
Write to them. That's it. Write to them. Because writing will set you apart, is a key differentiator that you can leverage when you have no other connections. Yeah. And even if you feel you're not a powerful writer, you can start today to hone your writing skills. But people do appreciate a carefully crafted letter. Include all those elements of persuasion, some anecdotes, some storytelling. And for me, speaking from personal experience, that has been really, really beneficial to me over the years. But it is something that you can start today. You can start today to hone your writing skills. And you could start by updating your knowledge of grammar. Yeah, and I'm sure you're going to see the resources in the notes and everything. But University of Bristol Grammar webpage is fantastic for basically explaining the nitty-gritty of grammar and how you can update your skills and the punctuation marks and so on and so forth. And it's completely free. It's something that I advise executives, MBA students, and so on and so forth. Fantastic resource, University of Bristol Grammar. There's also another one, the Purdue Online Writing Lab webpage as well. Again, free resources. You could go online, do the exercises, and they would be very useful. Yeah. And another thing you could do is also to just hone your writing skills over time. So subscribe to blogs, for example, top 20 writing blogs. And then just adhere to the 3 rules of business writing, which are similar to the 3 rules of speaking. So again, know your audience or your recipient. Rule number 2, ensure that your writing, your message is simple, brief, and clear. The 3rd rule is to ensure that you edit your work and proofread, I say ruthlessly. So get rid of clutter, yeah, to strengthen your writing and polish. And over time, you'll become an effective writer. So if you need to get your foot in the door or get noticed or contact influential people in your industry or outside your industry, write to them. Yeah, write to them. That's the best way to get their attention.
Brilliant, brilliant. And so I'm loving the chat, and I just want to pick up on a couple of the comments. So yes. Di has raised ChatGPT, and of course, we've been talking a lot about ChatGPT. And in fact, we're encouraging everybody to use it, to play with it. And Gianni just said, I got inspired from Lucille's previous tip to draft a new GPT prompt, simplify the below message so that it can be written on the back of a napkin. Just tested it and it works. So we can use GPT to help us as well. There you go.
Just a word of caution with ChatGPT. I think the more specific you are, I think the better prompts that you get. But when it comes to writing in particular, GPT cannot replicate that human spirit. Yeah, it can't replicate it. So feel free to really look deep into yourself and find out what is the story, what we're connecting with this person, and what point can I bring about my life, my anecdotes, my experience that will heighten the point I'm about to make. And that's something ChatGPT will not do because it's not human.
Yeah,
we're human. So
it writes very well, but as you say, if you want the writing to really sound like you, then you need to influence it too.
Absolutely.
That's really true. Feedback. I wanted to pick up on your point, Lucille, about feedback, because that's a really interesting one. I don't think we do it enough, actually. And I'm sure that it's very clear why. It's a sort of very nerve-wracking thing, asking for feedback, and then feeling that you're able to provide honest and constructive feedback. So can you talk a little bit more about that feedback process and how to make it work well to encourage? Because I agree with you. I think it is something that we need to do more and more of, but as I said, I don't think we do enough of it. So how do we get to that place?
Yeah, so really, really important follow-up point. I think it's just to be mindful that people still want to know. Yeah, if you switch places with the other person, you would still want to know whether you have the favorable information or not. So if you have it at the back of your mind to say, okay, I'm going to respond, especially to this. This is a very sensitive issue. I need some time to craft my messaging, but I'm going to respond 24 to 48 hours. And then if you need more time, you should at least say, I've received your email. I've noted your complaints. I'm going to get back to you. Please bear with me. I'll get back to you shortly. And just give a time frame. What that does is that it reassures the other person that you are taking their complaints seriously. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you have the full information. Yeah, but if you say, I'm going to get back to you in 24 hours, please do so. Because what that does is that it nurtures trust. Yeah, so even if further down the line you have to deliver bad news and everything, the person looks at your track record and says, oh, hold on, this person has been true to his or her word. He or she has been direct and has been open. I can trust what he or she says. And although this is not favorable to me, I do appreciate the fact that, it is beyond her control or his control, and I would work with this person. And it's really, really important. We hear about scandals and corporate crises, in the US and beyond, whereby you don't get an official statement sometimes in 24 hours or 48 hours. And by that time, there's a lot of speculation. People have gone on Twitter, they're speculating, there are rumors. And by the time you do eventually get your spokesperson to release something, people are not convinced. They're like, no, you've been trying to hide something. We don't trust you. You haven't shown that and it just creates a lot of distrust. So I think if you just have that in mind, just do communicate as quickly as you can. Yeah, 24 to 48 hours. Let them know what you do know and let them know what you're working on. And even if it's going to take longer, keep on communicating. People would come to appreciate your openness and will come to appreciate you as a leader, that they can trust what you say, even if the outcome is negative. So I think that's really, it's a habit you can cultivate. And I dare say, if there are leaders listening in, it is something that you can introduce in your organization. And trust me, it would really empower your employees and your staff, especially the front, the ones at the ground level and so on and so forth. It will inspire a lot of confidence with the public and all that. And they will begin to trust, oh no, that company is known for prompt feedback, for honest speaker. We can trust what they say. And it just really helps. And that is what really distinguishes you, because I think lack of feedback, just like you said, Sally, I don't think I've noticed a gap in my country, Nigeria, but I don't think it's specific to a country. I just think it's something that we can all do as professionals to ensure that we are credible. This is what makes us professional, that we are credible and trustworthy. Yeah. So little tweaks really help.
Very, very sage advice. Lucille, in the last minute that we have, I know you wanted to tell everybody a little bit about your book and the opportunity for them to access bits of it.
Right, right. So I have a very useful resource that I'm excited to share. I'm excited to share. And it is 4 chapters of my book, Influence and Thrive, specifically taken from different sections. So I have the first section on nonverbal communication, and that talks about the SCAN system, how you can use the SCAN system to determine what people, or bring you closer to what people are thinking and feeling, so you can make the right decision. Then the second segment is from the public speaking segment, get to the point. So that will help you how you can craft your message and be very concise. Then I have a third one on business writing, on emails. Yeah, so we all write emails, but do we write emails effectively? Do we craft powerful emails that get us noticed? So that's what the third chapter will talk about. And then the final chapter just talks about, and this is for the leaders amongst the audience, talks about how you can use communication effectively, create a culture of communication so that you can drive those business results. So I hope you all like the gift, and easy to download. So you just go to the website, the landing page, and just click on it. You don't even need to provide your email address. Just click on it and download. But you do need to do that as soon as possible, within 48 hours, in line with the whole feedback mechanism I talked about. And and just enjoy. And I hope those chapters will really help you to appreciate the power of communication and how you can use it in your specific sphere to influence people ethically and get the results that you desire.
Amazing. Lucille, I can see from the chat that people are downloading already. So
excellent.
It's happening. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. It's been a pleasure. Really, really nice to spend this half hour with you, and look forward to doing more, Lucille, and sharing your expertise. Absolutely. Again.
Yes, and they can connect with me. Anyone can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to share information on communication and so on and so forth. So reach out on LinkedIn. Amazing. And let's connect. Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lucille.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Take care. Bye.